today we are going to be reading some Peter Rabbit. And happy Easter, everyone. I know it's not Easter, but Easter is coming up. So I hope you have an amazing Easter. Let's get started with the book, guys. Once upon a time, there were 4 rabbits, and their names were Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail. And Peter, they lived with their mother in a sandbank underneath the root of a very big fire tree. "Now, my dears," said old Mr. Rabbit, "one morning you may go into the fields or down the lane. But don't go into Miss Gregor's garden. Your father had an accident there. He was put in a pie by Miss Gregor. Now run along and don't get into Miss Sheep. I'm going out." Then old Mr. Rabbit took a basket and her umbrella and went down through the woods to the baker's. She bought a loaf of brown bread and 5 currant buns. Flopsy and Mopsy and Cottontail, who were good little bunnies, went down the lane to gather blackberries. But Peter was very naughty, ran straight away to Miss Gregor's garden and squeezed under the gate. First, he ate some lettuce and some French beans, and he ate some radishes. And then, feeling rather sick, he went to look for some parsley. But round the end of a cucumber frame, whom should he meet Mr. Gregor? Mr. Gregor was on his hands and knees planting out young cabbages. But he jumped and ran after Peter, was waving a rake and calling out, "Stop, thief." Peter was most dreadfully frightened. He was all over the garden, for he had forgotten the way back to the gate. He lost one of his shoes among the cabbages and the other shoe among the potatoes. After losing them, he ran on 4 legs and went faster, so that I think he might have got away altogether if he had not, unfortunately, run into a gooseberry net, and he got caught by the large buttons on his jacket. It was a blue jacket with brass buttons, quite new. Peter gave himself up for a loss and shed big tears. But his sobs were overheard by some friendly sparrows who flew to him in great excitement and implored him to exert himself. Mr. Gregor came up with a sieve which he intended to pop upon the top of Peter, but Peter wriggled out just in time, leaving his jacket behind him. Mr. Gregor was quite sure that Peter was somewhere in their tool shed, perhaps hidden underneath a flower pot. He began to turn them over, carefully looking under each. Presently, Peter sneezed. "Kerchoo!" Mr. Gregor was after him in no time and tried to put his foot upon Peter, who jumped out of a window upset. Ting, 3 plants. The window was too small for Mr. Gregor, and he was tired of running, and Peter went back to his work. Peter sat down to rest. He was out of breath and trembling with fright know which way to go. Also, he was very damp from sitting in that can. An old mouse was running and out over to Stone doorstep, carrying peas and beans to her family in the woods. Peter asked her the way to the gate, but she said such a large pea in her mouth that she could not answer. She only shook her head at him. Peter began to cry. Then he tried to find his way straight across the garden, but he became more and more puzzled. Presently, he came to the pond where Mr. Gregor filled his watering can. A white cat was starting at some goldfish. She sat very, very still, but now and then the tip of her tail twisted as if were alive. Peter thought it was the best to go without it. Speaking to her, he had heard about cats from his cousin, the little Benjamin Bunny. He went back toward the tool shed, but suddenly quite close to him, he heard the noise from a hoe. Rich. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Peter scuttered underneath the bushes, but presently, as nothing happened, he barreled and peeped over. The first thing he saw was Mr. Gregor hoeing onions. His back was turned toward Peter. Beyond him was the gate. Peter got down very quietly of the wheelbarrow and started running as fast as he could along a straight walk behind the black currant bushes. Mr. Gregor caught sight of him at the corner, but Peter did not care. He slipped underneath the gate and was safe, at last, in the woods outside the garden. Mr. McGregor hung up the little jacket and the shoes for a scarecrow to frighten the blackbirds. Peter never stopped running or looked behind him till he got home to the big fire tree. He was so tired that he flopped down upon the nice soft sand on the floor of the rabbit hole and shut his eyes. His mother was busy cooking. She wondered what he had done with his clothes. It was the second little jacket and pair of shoes that Peter had lost in fortnight. I'm sorry to say that Peter was not very well during the evening. His mother put him to bed and made some chamomile tea, and she gave a dozen of it to Peter, 1 tablespoonful to be taken at bedtime. But Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail, bread and milk and blackberries for super. Alright kids, I finished the whole story, and I hope you have an amazing day. Please subscribe to this video. I hope you have a good Easter. I'll see you next time. Bye kids.